Hey everybody, it's Chris. So today I'm going to be doing a little review on a book that I just finished reading last week called House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Of course, for this review I'm going to talk about what this book is about and what I thought of it, but I also have to spend a little bit of time talking about what this book is, because this book is a lot more than just a book. I would say it's like a very intelligent literary work of art. I mean, it's just an extremely unique experience, like none I've ever really had from a book before, and there's just a lot that I feel like I want to say about it to you, to give you an idea of what this book really is and what it's trying to do. I'm gonna keep it spoiler-free and everything while I'm telling you all this, so don't worry if you haven't read it yet. My main interest is to get people that haven't read it yet interested in reading it. So basically I want you to remember that above everything else that I say, above all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about that goes on in this book, I want you to remember that the entire thing is written by Mark Z. Danielewski. He is like the author of this entire thing, but there's a lot of stuff going on within this book that he has written. So within this book that he has written, within the context of it, there is this manuscript called House of Leaves, which was written by a guy named Zampano. Now I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that is how you pronounce his name. Doesn't tell you whether that's his first name or his last name, that's just what he goes by, Zampano. And he has written this manuscript called The House of Leaves, and that's the bulk of what this book is. Now, within the context of this whole thing, the House of Leaves manuscript, which was written by Zampano, was found by a guy named Johnny Truant. Basically, Johnny finds the manuscript, reads it, adds to it, and basically is just trying to figure out what it is. The House of Leaves, Zampano's manuscript, talks about this film called The Navidson Report, which is about this guy named Will Navidson who has moved into this new house with his family, his wife, his kids, and his pets. And he is like a photographer and a documentary filmmaker, so that's what he does, is he likes to use those things to capture different things in his life. And he sets up cameras all around this house to kind of document what it's like to live in this new house with his family. But while he does that, some really strange things are going on in the house. First, the things are just a little bit weird, just like these random little anomalies in structural possibilities, like a room being larger on the inside than it is on the outside, which is impossible, and stuff like that. And then, out of nowhere one day, this hallway, this dark hallway, appears out of nowhere, and this hallway is this just long hallway that has like a door at the end, and through that door is this huge, dark, cold labyrinth of craziness that makes absolutely no sense and that shouldn't be there, and it seems infinite. And a lot of the film, The Navidson Report, ends up exploring inside that hallway and being about that hallway. But this film, The Navidson Report, that Zampano is writing about in his manuscript House of Leaves, according to Johnny, and this is not a spoiler because Johnny says this in his little introduction right at the very beginning, so you go into the story knowing this right off the bat. Johnny has come to the conclusion that this film does not actually exist. Zampano uses a ton of references. His manuscript reads like a textbook most of the time, a textbook talking about the different aspects of this film. And the references are like books about the film, and articles and things about the film that people have written, like actual people that exist, like famous people that exist have written about the film. Johnny contacts all of these people who Zampano has claimed to have written about the film, and none of them have heard of The Navidson Report, Will Navidson, or anybody else in the film. None of them have heard of Zampano, and none of them have heard of The House of Leaves. Johnny basically comes to the conclusion that almost all of the references that Zampano uses in this are just fake, they're not real. But Zampano is going to really great lengths to explain in amazing detail what happens in the film, in this apparently not real film. So much so that even we as an audience, while we're reading about the film, kind of forget that this film doesn't actually exist. We become so engrossed in it, or at least I became so engrossed in it, that I just completely forgot that this film technically doesn't even exist, because the way Zampano writes about it, I just kind of have to believe that he's actually talking about something that actually exists and something that was real. And it seems so well documented. He has so many references that explain so many different things that it just seems like it has to be real. But it's not real. Or is it? Now, Johnny is experiencing some things in his life, going through some things in his life that are just driving him crazy. He's having these crazy nightmares and all of these crazy hallucinations that all seem to stem from reading and writing about the House of Leaves manuscript. Johnny is sometimes very crude and very screwed up in a lot of ways, but he's also a really great character. He tells us a lot about his life and the things that are happening in his life ever since he found House of Leaves. And all in all, his life just seems to be spiraling out of control. And we read about that through his like little footnotes that he leaves throughout the House of Leaves manuscript. The structure of this book is kind of crazy. Like I said, it kind of reads like a textbook sometimes. Zampano's writing kind of reads like a textbook for a while, where he's just kind of explaining very academically the things that are happening in the film. But then he like goes off suddenly into these huge tangents of like metaphors, like relating echoes and how bats use sound to see things and stuff like that, to how it relates to the Navidson Report and the hallway inside the house. And then at one point, this really, really great point where he starts talking about labyrinths and how labyrinths and mazes are like crazy, and he starts giving this big history of labyrinths and where labyrinths appear in like mythology and stuff. And at the same time, while he's explaining that in the context of the film, the people in the film are kind of exploring the labyrinths of this hallway that just appeared out of nowhere. And while all of that is happening, the way the book is written, it's like a labyrinth itself. It's a literary labyrinth where you're going through these like footnotes, you're reading parts of the book, and then it sends you to a footnote that's like 5 pages ahead, and then at the end of that footnote you'll go back like 3 pages because it sends you to a footnote 3 pages back, and then it keeps sending you back and forth to these footnotes, and then you have to go back and read all of the actual like writing, and then that'll send you to random footnotes, and a whole bunch of the footnotes are like crossed out and in red. And this is just this crazy maze, a crazy literary maze, while it's talking about mazes and while the people in the film are experiencing maze. And it's a really great, awesome experience. It can get so confusing, and that's the whole point. Sometimes you feel like you're missing things, and you just have to keep going back and forth and make sure you're not missing anything, to make sure you're making all the right turns and all the right choices in how you read. And then you get to this point where there's like this like random box just appears in it, and that's a footnote, and that footnote starts there and then keeps going. And when you read this footnote, you have to read the entire thing. Like in these boxes, you have to go through all of the boxes until you get to the end of it. And then at the end of that footnote, there's another footnote that's like going this way, and then you have to read that footnote all the way back to where the boxes started. And it's just crazy, and it gets so confusing, and there's just footnotes and random text everywhere, and it gets so confusing, but it's so great, it's so interesting, and everything is just so scattered, and you have to make sense of it yourself. And then there are these parts that last like 50 pages long, where there'll be like 1 or 2 words on a page, or even just 1 sentence on a page, and you'll like flip through it because you'll just read 1 word at a time, and it makes everything really exciting and invigorating, and you're like on the edge of your seat, and it's like freaky how fast you go through it and how fast you read this, and it just makes everything so great to get through. I mean, it's thrilling and terrifying sometimes. And then there's one of those situations where there's only a few sentences on each page, where you're just like have to flip the book around a ton because all of them are upside down or sideways or whatever. It'll give you a little reenactment of what it might be like to read this. Ugh. What the heck? Oh my god. What? Shit. What the fuck? What the fuck is going on? That letter's sideways. What? And then there are parts where a footnote will literally just list stuff for seemingly no reason. Like, here's a footnote that starts right here, and then it's just a list of photographers' names, like just tons of photographers, and it lasts for like 4 pages. It's this whole page, and this is just like a list of photographers' names for no apparent reason. Although, if you look closely enough, you might find a few little secrets in the list like that. I'm actually going to put a link to the forum that surrounds this book down in the description. I suggest you kind of take a look at that while you're reading this, and definitely at the end of when you read it, to kind of get an idea of some of the things you might have missed, some of the little secrets that are hidden that you might have missed. Anyway, this book is just one of the smartest, most interesting books that I've ever experienced, and is now one of my favorite books ever. It's considered horror-ish, but it's not your typical type of horror. It messes with your head. Like, seriously, when you're reading this, it messes with your head. Just from the way it's written, and from the layout of the text, to what's said is just, it all messes with your head in a lot of different ways, and it's great. It's fantastic. After reading it, I had really felt like I had experienced something great. I mean, the characters are all great. I mean, Johnny Truant is great. You read a whole bunch about his life. He kind of goes into his past and his present and into his relationships with people and girls and his friends and his enemies, and you just get a huge overlook of what is going on in his life. And then Zampano, even though we don't actually like directly have any like correspondence with him as a character, you get a sense of what his character is through his writing about the film. And then through his writing about the film, you get a huge sense of what all of the characters in the film are like Navidson and his wife and their relationship. His kids are really well characterized. Will Navidson's brother, and everybody that's in the film is just really, really well written by Zampano. I mean, all of the characters are just astonishing in this. The commentary and the footnotes are great, both from Zampano and from Johnny. There are even some like little editor's footnotes in here where you can just kind of see how snarky they are. You can kind of see in some of the editor's footnotes how like fed up they are with what's going on inside the book, because both Johnny and Zampano will leave stuff out and the editors will have to fill it in. They're just like, okay, they didn't put this in here, so we're going to put it in here. And Zampano kind of writes really pretentiously sometimes, and it's really fun to see Johnny point that out a lot. The little interviews and references that Zampano has written are really great. There's a whole bunch of references to interviews with famous people like Stephen King and like Stanley Kubrick, and famous photographers and famous reporters and writers and stuff like that. Everything feels real, and everything just feels like there's no possible way that this film doesn't exist, and like everything that's said in this book did actually exist. And it feels really great. It feels really real. It's a really great experience. And if you're not careful, you'll fall into this. You'll believe every single word. You'll become a part of it, unsure of what's real and what isn't real, what matters and what doesn't. You'll be asking yourself, what the hell is going on? What's going on with Johnny? What is going on with Zampano? What is going on in this film? What is going on in this house? And how is it all affecting me? Anyway, I really hope you guys will check this book out. I hope you found the review interesting. It's really great. It's really smart. It's got funny parts in it. It's got beautiful parts in it. The writing is great. The character's great. Everything is great. It's a truly unique experience that I really hope more people will check out and read. And I just thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with more very soon. So, see ya.